For over 5 years, Gatsby built this illusion of who Daisy was and what their relationship was like. Gatsby has lived in a world where Daisy has only ever thought of him. The passage we chose is the moment when Gatsby is forced to face the fact that Daisy had moved on in life after she assumed he was dead. As soon as Daisy learns Gatsby is alive, she admits she does love him now, but Gatsby only wants to accept that he was her only true love. Daisy admitting to him that she did at one point love Tom shatters the fantasy world he has been living in for the past 5 years.
Age: Gatsby is in his early 30s or late 20s. Daisy is in her mid-20s. Tom is in his late 20s or his early 30s. And Nick is in his mid-20s. Gatsby and Daisy. Gatsby and Daisy were an item when they were young and loved each other very much. But after he went to war and seemed to disappear or have been killed, Daisy moved on, assuming he was dead. But actually, Gatsby never stopped thinking of Daisy and was amassing a fortune so he would be rich enough to marry Daisy, who comes from a wealthy Southern family. Daisy married Tom after assuming Gatsby was dead. She had moved on and fallen in love with a very rich man. They had a good few weeks of marriage, but on their honeymoon, Tom was caught with a mistress. This was the start of a long and unfaithful marriage. Daisy and Nick are close cousins and friends. They have always remained close, therefore moving to New York was wonderful for Nick, who would get to see his cousin. Nick and Tom went to school together and remained good friends. Nick moves into the gardener's house next to Gatsby's mansion. At first, Gatsby doesn't think much of him, but once he learns Nick is related to Daisy, he sees it as a way to get close to her again. He befriends Nick and enlists his help in a setup to meet Daisy again.
Before this passage, Daisy and Gatsby are rekindling their old flame behind Tom's back. Gatsby is convinced that things have now changed, but Daisy is not so sure. Gatsby is convinced she will drop everything and come back to him. During this passage, Gatsby is arguing with Daisy about who she loves. He believes that she is in love with him wholeheartedly and will leave Tom for him. Daisy does not know what to do, because at one point she did love Tom. After this passage, Daisy is driving in Gatsby's car back towards town. She is frantic and driving crazy. She cannot focus on the road and ends up hitting Tom's mistress, Myrtle, who believed Tom was driving the car. She did not know who she hit, so she just drives away.
Going into the argument, Gatsby is confident in himself, as he's living in his fantasy world where Daisy has always been hopelessly in love with him and no one else. After the argument, he feels betrayed, depressed, and lost. His world has been shattered. However, he still is madly in love with Daisy and would do anything for her.
2, 1.
You're revolting. Do you know why we left Chicago? I'm surprised they didn't treat you to the story of that little spree.
Daisy, it's all over now. It doesn't matter anymore. Just tell him that you've never loved him and it will all be wiped out forever.
Why? How could I possibly?
You never loved him.
I never loved him.
Not at Kaplani?
No.
Not that day I carried you down from the punch bowl to keep your shoes dry? Daisy.
Please don't. There, Jay. Oh, you want too much. I love you now. Isn't that enough? I can't help what's the past. I did love him, but I loved you too.
You loved me too?
Even that's a lie. She didn't know you were alive. Why, there are things between Daisy and me that you'll never know. Things that neither of us can forget.
I want to speak to Daisy alone. She's all excited now.
Even alone, I can't say I never loved Tom. It wouldn't be true.
Of course it wouldn't.
As if it mattered to you.
Of course it matters. I'm going to take better care of you from now on.
It doesn't. You don't understand. You're not going to take care of her anymore.
I'm not? Why is that?
Daisy's leaving you.
Nonsense.
I am, though.
She's not leaving me. Certainly not for a common swindler who would have to steal the ring he put on her finger.
I won't stand this. Please, let's get out.
On page 101, after Daisy visits Gatsby at his mansion for the first time, Nick writes, "There must have been moments even that afternoon when Daisy tumbled short of his dreams, not through her own fault, but because of the colossal vitality of his illusion. It had gone beyond her, beyond everything. He had thrown himself into it with a creative passion, adding to it all the time, decking it out with every bright feather that drifted his way. No amount of fire or freshness can challenge what a man will store up in his ghostly heart." This is evidence of the fantasy world Gatsby has been living in. Nick observes how Gatsby keeps adding to his illusion until Daisy can't possibly live up to the expectation. The passage mostly consists of dialogue with simple sentences accompanying them. There are a few complex and compound sentences when Nick begins to describe the scene. Since this passage includes a lot of dialogue, the simple sentences around them are in charge of setting the mood. The sentences are straight to the point, just like the argument. The short, jumpy sentences effectively show how fast-paced the tempo of the dialogue is, since it is a heated, emotional argument. The simple sentences are meant to describe the setting and the actions of the characters during the argument.
The theme that occurs throughout the book is the decline of the American dream in the 1920s. Fitzgerald used The Great Gatsby to showcase that after World War I, people were in endless pursuit to find pleasure due to an overabundance of wealth. The parties Gatsby throws symbolize a distraction for the citizens of New York as they try to have fun without working for it. People began to spend and consume at much larger levels before the stock market crash. The American dream was about individualism, discovery, and the pursuit of happiness. But in the 1920s, easy money and relaxed social values overtake this dream. The difference between old money and new money is seen as Gatsby tries to buy Daisy's love with his extravagant lifestyle. He assumed she wouldn't love him as he was, and that he needed money. So Gatsby made himself one of the new money rich on Long Island through illegal means in order to win her back.
There is no alliteration, consonants, or assonance in this passage. This could be because it is mainly composed of dialogue. When people are talking, especially in an emotional situation like this, they aren't very concerned with having a certain form to their words. This makes the passage seem choppy and fast, as it cuts from one character to another, as Tom, Daisy, and Gatsby fight over who Daisy loves. The lack of alliteration, consonants, or assonance makes the tempo more fast-paced, as it is less like a tongue twister and more like real dialogue. The rhythm is choppier because there aren't repeating sounds. The lack of these terms fit the mood because it is very emotional in emotional situations. People aren't concerned with how their words physically sound. It fits the tone because people are arguing, and the lack of poetic form helps it feel more realistic to the reader, as if these are real people fighting over real problems. Professional actors would read this passage as a rough argument. Daisy should be very distressed, along with Tom and Gatsby losing their temper. The men would fight it out, and Daisy should feel caught in the middle. Daisy's tone shifts after she asks Gatsby how could she love Tom. She is more hesitant and reluctant than she was at the beginning. This happens because she does not know what she feels, and she does not want to hurt anybody. Gatsby's and Tom's tones stay the same during this passage because they are both angry and confused about the situation.